Hello, my name is Steve Gonzalski, and welcome to one of the classes that I'm teaching here at Saddleback College for the spring of 2024. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you can get into Canvas. So if you're watching this video from the home page of our Canvas class, you're all set on this step. If you have no idea what I mean by that and you're watching this video from the link I provided in the email, then let me just make sure you know how to get into Canvas. So the best way is to go from the college's website, so saddleback.edu, then go to Logins, and then select Canvas. You may or may not see this page, but if you do, click on Canvas again. And then once you get into this page, you'll need to enter in your username and password to bring you to this dashboard. Your dashboard will look a lot different than mine, but it should have any and every class that you're in listed here. And then you simply find the name of the class in question, click on it, and it'll bring you inside of Canvas. So let's just pretend that you're in this class here. What you want to do is get to the home page, and then you will see a video. Actually, you'll see two videos inside of here, and that's where you will rejoin me. If you have trouble getting into Canvas, then go back to the email that I sent, and I have a list of contacts for tech support and so on. So the first thing to do to get started with one of my classes is to watch these two getting started videos in the home page of the class. Please take notes. I like the idea when you're taking notes to have a cover page of the most important things. And for example, for my classes, that would be, for example, where to go for help, how to name files for the class, and so on. You'll see as you watch this video, the next video, and then the videos in the orientation module that there will be important things that I emphasize about this class. And if you have that nice little concise top of your notes for each class, for me, for other instructors, then it gets rid of that feeling of panic if you don't know where to go or how to name something before you turn it in, and so on. If you're watching this video in the little tiny view, know that you can go to the bottom left and click on it, and it will open up much larger for you. Anything that's not thoroughly explained in this or the next video will be thoroughly explained in the orientation module. Now, right off the bat, I want to start here and say that last semester, there seemed to be, in my 15 plus years of teaching, the hugest issue with students not following instructions. And it wasn't just me. I noticed, other instructors commented on this. I don't know if it was something in the air or the water or what it was, but I do not want to go through that again. So I've even added this section to the home page that says, let's make it a great semester. My commitment to you. You will have all the instructions you need to be successful in this class. I will answer all of your questions to the best of my ability and as quick as possible. However, your commitment, block out 9 or more hours each week for this class. You're going to hear me talk more about this, but that's the college norm, is that you engage 9 hours a week on average for a class. That includes the class time, and that includes the homework. My classes are typically a mix of all of the above, unless it's purely an online class, but even then you have to block out time for watching videos, and then block out time for really and truly engaging with the written instruction, and then working on the projects. So if you just start working on something without the instruction, we're going to have a really hard time getting along. So please engage with the class, engage with all of the verbal, written, and video instruction. And then something you'll hear me talk more about in the welcome videos that are coming up in the module is how to use the assignment pages as a checklist so that you do not miss anything, so that you are right on track, fully engaged, and making sure that you're not missing silly points for not following instructions. And I just want to make a notice to students that are part of the disabled students services. If you are, you'll get an accommodation letter from them. But keep in mind, or keep this in mind, I should say, that I have set this class up so that it should meet all of your accommodations. If ever that is not the case, reach out to me right away and let me know. Keep this in mind. The accommodations do not override the syllabus. So one example is if your accommodations say something like you can submit work late, that does not mean that that overrides the 2-week maximum of turning in work in the syllabus. It will lock you out and you will not be able to turn it in. Otherwise, it just would not make any sense that you're in a class with a finite ending and you can turn in work whenever you want. So you always want to turn in work on time. And if for whatever reason you cannot, refer to the syllabus for the late penalties, which apply to everyone. But, the key takeaway here is that I do accept work late. It is penalized for being late, and it is a very horrible habit to get into, turning work in late. If it happens once, twice, probably not a big deal. But if it's a way of working, it's not a good way of working. I want to let you know right off the bat, too, that I really care about you as a student, and I care about your experience in the class. Therefore, you're going to see that everything I do, I try to make as clear as possible to you. I want you to learn all the things that are required to learn. So if I get upset, it's usually because I'm like, why aren't you taking the time to learn all of this stuff? Why aren't you reading the instructions before you engage with the project? I want you to come away from this class learning as much as you possibly can from it. Something that I have just recently added to my syllabus deals with artificial intelligence. So just make sure as you're going through the syllabus, you realize that you cannot use artificial intelligence to generate your work in this class. If you're taking, for example, one of my graphic design classes and you were required to make graphics, you never could just steal those from the internet. That makes no sense. You're not learning what you need. And if you want to work in this industry, you have to impress people with your portfolio and show them that you can do original work. Now, people use artificial intelligence sometimes to help generate ideas, but you have to be able to manipulate that work and make it your own. So there is no easy way outs here by just, clicking some buttons. All right, so we already talked about getting into Canvas. One important thing to note is that Canvas added this hamburger button up here. So if ever you're looking for this list of options here and you don't see it, that's because you probably clicked on this button, or maybe it defaulted that way for you. So keep that in mind. Another thing is that Canvas lately, like in the last year, seems to have to be refreshed a lot. So if you go to a page that has videos, it may tell you at first that the video is not available. It's probably not true. So just, go up to your refresh button for whatever browser system you're using, but also note that the college recommends that you use Google Chrome as the preferred browser for Canvas. So if you don't have that and you're trying to work from home, download Google Chrome. And read through the homepage. It includes a lot of the key things that you might, be wondering about and need to know. So it's kind of designed to be like your quick access page. There's also this thing here that looks like a ring buoy, and it has a great list of any support that you could probably ever need, from disabled student services to help with Canvas itself, to help with just basic technology, and so on. When emailing me, please note that my email responses will probably sound more like a text than an email. Like, I probably won't repeat your name. I won't say have a good day at the bottom. I like to think that I'm very quick about getting back to students, and one of the reasons is that I kind of dismiss the formalities. And in return, I ask that you kind of do the same thing and just make sure that your emails are on point to me. Sometimes I have to read through 3 paragraphs of excuses which aren't applicable anyway, because if you read the syllabus, you know that I stick with the syllabus with every student. So if your excuse is not an excuse that's permitted in the syllabus, then there's no sense you bothering to tell me about it. And I'm sorry if that sounds gruff, but that's just the way life is. I mean, if you do have something that you want to consider, let me know, but don't take 3 paragraphs to do so. Just, get to what your question is. Please don't share your politics with me, if you don't like Google Chrome, for example, or you don't like YouTube. That is just, the way it is. Those are the systems that we use. If you are taking an in-person class and you will only be using the software at the college, you're good on this next topic. However, if you do want to get the software and we get an excellent deal through the college, you're going to go to collegebuys.org, and I'm just going to show you that real quick because there's a couple odd things about it. First of all, when you go to this page, it actually redirects you to another page. It looks like it's just taking a second to load up. But the key thing here is this is an excellent deal on the software, but they can't just give it to you for this great price. So they have to have you prove that you are a college student, and you have to, so to speak, jump through a couple hoops to get it. Make sure you're using the college email. Make sure after you apply for it that you're checking again at the college email to get your permissions to go through. In other words, follow their instructions. And please know, I can't help you with this step. I have no control whatsoever over how College Buys dishes out the software to you. So you have to follow their instruction. Now, if you, I don't know, have some kind of a technical difficulty that maybe the college tech services can help you out with, that's a possibility. And again, you go into that ring buoy, we'll take you there and get you the contact for them. But for the most part, this is something that you work out with College Buys. Very important for me to tell you, if you already did this last semester and you only did it for one semester, make sure you are prepared to go through the process again. Because if you're using the software and all of a sudden it runs out on you and it takes you like 4 or 5 days for this to happen, that is not a valid excuse for turning something in late. Okay, and since I'm talking about those kind of things, let me just tell you everything here to watch out for. So there are no substitutions on the software. You must use, for any of the classes I teach, the Adobe Creative Cloud. Once you download the Creative Cloud on your computer, you will see an icon up at the top somewhere that looks like this. Once you have that, then you can download the individual apps inside of here. So you'll see all the different apps that you might need. In the next video, I'll talk about your specific class, what your software needs are. But note that you need the full version of the software, not the versions that are made for tablets or phones. And the full Creative Cloud will not work on a Chromebook, which is like kind of a simplified notebook computer. Will not work on it. So you need to allow like a total of about 5 days for all of this to go through, but stay on top of it every single day. Check your email, make sure that everything has gone through, and just go through their email with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that you're following all the steps, including how you enter in the passcode for it. If you've never used the 7-day free trial for the software, you will have access to that, so that can buy you some time. In the meantime, I always make the classes set up so that the first couple days you can get by without the software while you are performing all these steps. Okay, so once you get in here, you can see it redirects you to here. Now, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see, the offerings for college students. keep in mind this could change, but just be on the lookout for something that talks about that. And then you can see, like, once I got to the actual college buys, now I can see here's Adobe, and then I can see here is the options. Now, I don't know if this has changed. So subscription length, it looks like you can do 6 months for $50, which is like 1/12 of the regular price, or you can go for 12 months. Now, last semester, there were two options for the software in here. One that was about $5 more. And my understanding of that was that it enabled you to use a different email once you were all set up. It doesn't look like that's there anymore. And I'll just explain this to you quickly. What that did, and I don't know if they found a workaround around this or if it's just back to the original way that it was. But what happens is if you're in the classroom and you log on with your email, which you need to get the software, it will take you into our version on our computers, which means you will not have access to your cloud, which means that you can't save stuff on the cloud and then download it. It's really not a big deal. Just get a cloud-based backup system or carry a couple thumb drives with you and you'll be able to transfer the work. Even if they tell you that you can save stuff in the cloud with this version, still initially back your work up to something other than Adobe, or I should say Adobe's cloud. Okay, so that's the end of my talk about you getting the software for yourself. If you need access to the software between classes, if you're on campus, we have 4 iMacs in the LRC, and I'm going to show you, if you go back to the home page for whatever class you have, you will see a section in here that talks about accessing computers between classes. And just note that this is the most up-to-date information on where those computers are located. If you are going there to use them, I would have a copy of this on your phone or print it out so that you can easily find the computers. And if someone tells you, we don't have Macs here, you can say, yes, you do. My instructor was just there and he verified that we do. Another thing is that in the ATAS building, we will have a mentoring lab that gets opened up soon. So I will update that on your homepage. Also, another way to access the computers is look for classes that are scheduled in either ATAS 135 or 137 and see if the instructor will let you use the computers while they're teaching in there. Okay, if your class meets in person, once the class is established with times on the board when we're doing stuff, there's no need for you to ask me if you can go to the bathroom. I know some people are kind of locked into that habit from high school, but no. I mean, once I say, okay, we're working in class and it's clear that I'm done lecturing, then, you can go to the restroom as you need to. Raising your hand to get my attention is not the best way. Often just yelling out my name or coming up to the desk is the best way because I don't sit there scanning the classroom. Bring earbuds / headphones to you or with you to every class. Bring in your login credentials to the first day of class. Well, basically every day, so you can log in, but it's extremely important that you have them with you. Otherwise, you will not be able to get into the classroom computers. Okay, and I guess this doesn't really apply here, so let me delete it. Announcements. Always start with the announcements when you're going through Canvas. You're going to hear me talk a lot more about these next things in the what's called the welcome videos. But just know that you go here, you start here, you look to see if there was any announcements for that week. And then if you're in an online class, a new video will be released inside of the announcement each week. And it is an absolute requirement that you watch that video each week so that you get any updates or any important information that applies to the class for that upcoming week. And then the next thing you do after you have looked at the announcements is you go to modules. And it is extremely important that you do the modules in order. So always start at the top for any given module. Do this, then do this, then do this. Don't ever try to jump in the middle and do something, because you will have missed important instructions for whatever it is. I want to show you a very important example of something that happens in the modules. Now, this is just an example. You may or may not have this project, and I'm jumping way ahead to week 9 just to make sure that you just get the concept of this, not worrying about what the name of the project is. But very often you will see something in the modules that says there is a project announced. When you go to that announcement page for the project, there'll be a link to the project. Now, I want you to pay attention right here. We're in week number 9, the 5th item in. When you click on this, it jumps you into the future, in this case, all the way into week number 12. The reason is that's when the project is due. So I don't want you to have to find, a whole bunch of different places to access the same information. This has all of the information on it that you need to do the project, but it's also the place that in week number 12 that you will submit the assignment. So the key thing to keep in mind is you're out of order, basically. You're no longer in week number 9, but it's very easy. You can just use the back arrow key to go back, or you can click on modules and go back to a module for week number 9. So that's important to understand that concept, but also you always need to use these project pages as a checklist. So don't wait until week number 12 to start reading the project page, because there's going to be a lot of stuff assigned for this. Like in this case, this thing is introduced in week 9, not due to week 12, but in week 9, you'll be doing stuff for the given project. You'll be doing stuff in week number 10. You'll be doing stuff in week number 11, and you'll turn it in week number 12. If you do not understand all of this stuff here, then how could you possibly do all of the things properly along the way? So extremely important that you read all of the instructions, and by the time you're finished, you should be using this as a checklist where you can cross out every single one of these items and know that you've done everything correctly. And so it's very easy just to look at the number, right? So if you look up here and you see that it starts with a 12, then you know that that is not where you would turn anything in for that week. So always pay attention to this, and then always pay attention to the due date before you submit anything. So if I told you, okay, you're going to be doing a process check for this example project, and it says that in week number 9, this is definitely not where you would turn that in, because you'd be turning in something in the wrong spot 3 weeks before it's even due. So just sticking with the same example, here was where it was announced, and then down here would be the things that you're actually doing for it or towards it. So like this is related to it. And here you can see the due date is totally different. And when you're inside of this module, number 9, you can see that there is, a different due date. You can be assured that you're in the right week by looking there. So in addition to announcements and modules, you will also see a link over here for grades. Just make sure you check your grades very often and make sure that you can access comments that I made. It's set up very intuitively now, so you should be able to do that. But if you're in person with me, I will ask you, was everyone able to see the comments that I left you for assignment so-and-so? If you're online, I will ask you in the weekly video that goes in the announcements. And if you have problems, obviously reach out to me, and we should be able to fix that very quickly, because like I said, it's a very easy process. It's just some general things. Make an appointment with counseling often and soon to save time on your journey so that you don't end up taking classes that don't apply to you. Please do not submit work either in person or online unless it is complete and ready to be graded. So, for example, if you're required to submit 2 items to one module page, do not submit one before the deadline and promise to submit the other one later. It's either all turned in and it's on time, or it's late. If you turn in half of it on time, I'm going to grade and you're going to get a halfway grade. So if you can't get it all done, try not to fall in that situation. But if you can't get it all done, you wait and you turn it in late, but all of it all at once. Once work is submitted, it is graded. You cannot resubmit more of it late or correct mistakes and resubmit it. There are some exceptions to this, but that will be very, very clear in the submission instructions. So in general, if you turn in a project, you get a grade on it, you want to fix it, that's great. If you want feedback on it, let me know. But if you submit it again after fixing the mistakes, you're not going to get regraded. There are a couple things along the way. They're usually not projects. They're usually something that falls in the preparation category, which you'll learn about in the welcome videos. Some limited things on those. If you get a really bad grade, I will tell you right in the instructions, just resubmit it and I will regrade it. If it's not there, does not apply. All right. So what used to take about 3 hours to go over in class has been condensed into about 90 minutes worth of videos. These 5 videos are called the welcome videos, and they are part of the very first module that you will come to in your class. So no matter what class you're in with me, you will see that it starts with a section called Student Orientation, and the very second item in here takes you to a link where all of those videos live. You will follow up those videos with a welcome quiz. And I just want to show you something, and this will be one of those things that you want to write in your important notes. If you have a Mac, or if you're using the Macs on the computer and you want to, or on the campus, sorry, and you want to customize it, here is how you do it to make right-clicking work. So what I'm telling you here is you're going to see a video. It's called Files and More, and I may not have time to update this, so I'm going to show you in here. You used to go into something called like Preferences, but it's now System Settings. This is Apple's way of trying to make their computers as similar to their phones as possible. And then you scroll down here and you look for Keyboard. And on Keyboard, if you are on a desktop system, you will see an option in here to turn on right click, which you'll probably see, and I'm not on one obviously making this video, but you might see a picture of the mouse and you might see that the left side says left click, and you'll probably see that the right side says left click. So you just click a little down arrow next to that and change it. If it's not like that, it'll be something very simple in here to see. Another thing, and it may, no, I take that back. Well, no, I'm not. It may actually say mouse instead here. Like say I have a trackpad, so instead your system might say mouse for that. The other thing is, especially for those of you that are taking the digital animation class, you want to look for the ability to manipulate your function keys. So an example of this would be the F7 key. Right now, if you look at your F7 key, if you're on a Mac, you'll see that it's a rewind key. And that's usually how it's set up by default. But if you want it to be F7, then what you have to do is you have to press the FN key, which is in the bottom left-hand corner of your keyboard, and then press the F7. Well, if you're using a program, and Adobe Animate is one of those, where you're using the F keys a lot. In fact, we use the F5, F6, and F7 a lot. You'll want to make this change. So you click on keyboard shortcuts, and then from this submenu, you're going to go to function keys. And what you want to do is turn this on. So now what happens with this turned on, is if you press F7, it gives you F7, not rewind. And if you want rewind, if you're listening to music and you want to rewind it, now you press the FN key and then the F7 key, and it will rewind. All right, so in the next video, which will be much shorter, will just be specifics to your class.